Listen. The last thing that you want is to put a post up on Instagram, come back to it the next day, spot 30 different mistakes and think, why did I do this? Okay, so today I want to give you guys a quick tip on something that I always like to do before I share my work on social media. So for me, I'm always trying to take my paintings from the beginning to the end in one sitting, whether that be like an hour or 2 hours. I'm always trying to see it through to the end in one go. And I usually am able to accomplish that. But before I actually take that painting and put it up on Instagram for everybody to see, I like to actually go back into it to make some tweaks and edits. The reason for this is when you're sitting down during that first pass, you're looking at the same painting for a long period of time. Your brain is kind of getting used to what it's looking at. So the really small mistakes are not really going to immediately jump out at you. That's why when you finish a painting and you post it right away, sometimes you come back the next day and you're like, ooh, I should have done that differently. And I think this is such a simple concept to implement into your workflow. I've been doing it for all my pieces and it's actually helped me tremendously in terms of the quality of my work. So what I usually do is, on the screen here, you're gonna see a finished piece. This is what it looked like after the first pass. And I would take this painting, I would save it, I would export it as a PNG, and then I would airdrop it onto my phone so that I could keep it in my photo album. And then I would save the Photoshop file, close it down, and throughout the day I might just take my phone out, go through my photos, and take a look at the painting when I'm not really expecting it. So I'm pretty much seeing it on my phone like this. Now the first thing this does for me is it gives me a perspective on how other people are going to be consuming my work. So if I'm posting it on Instagram, people are going to be looking at it in this size. So if something is not working for this size, I can see it when I put it onto my phone before I post. Now the second thing is when I pull this painting up and I'm looking at it throughout the day, I'm actually seeing it through a fresh eye. And I think that's something that's really invaluable. When you've been working on the same painting for a long period of time, your brain kind of gets used to what it's seeing. So any small mistakes or things that you can improve on are almost just kind of glossed over and ignored. So this method works so well is when I take a painting, finish the first pass, I'll save it and then I'll have it on my phone and then I could look at it throughout the day, and if anything starts to jump out at me, then I know that's something that I probably went numb to during the actual painting process, and that's probably something that I would want to address later before I actually share it on social media. So if you look on the screen here, this is the piece that I recently posted on Instagram, and it did go back to actually make some edits, which took about 10 minutes. So I saved that on a layer here. If I turn it on, you're gonna really be able to see the difference. So that's the edit that I made based on what I saw when I was looking at it from my phone. Now when I turn it on and off, you can see it's not a huge change, but it makes a big difference to the feeling of the painting. So during the second pass, I actually gave the character a stronger rim light that you can see on that side of the face. And this really makes her pop out of the dark background a little bit more. If you can see I turn this off, she kind of starts to merge into the back, and that's something that I started noticing when I was looking at it on my phone. And I also added some hints of blue on the face as well to make the painting a little bit more dynamic in its color range, and I think it really helped a lot. I also blended in the eyes with the brown colors a little bit, and I strengthened the highlights on the pupils a little bit just to make that reflection really pop. Now these are some very small changes that I made over a short period of time, but if I didn't take that break, if I didn't put it on my phone, if I just posted right after I finished the first pass, I would have missed out on this opportunity. And I think being able to do this really helps me take a good painting and turn it into a great painting. Okay, so now that we've talked about the concept a little bit, I actually want to give you guys a real-time look at how I would apply that concept to an actual painting. So I made this piece after the video shoot of the first part, and I actually wanted to go back in to add some more details and polish it up a little bit before I actually share it on social media. So I figured I'd bring you guys along for this process as well. So I've had this on my phone for a little while now, and I've had some time to actually look at it and figure out what's working and what's not. And I think something that really jumps out at me about this piece is the fact that like it's pretty polished, it looks pretty good, but it's lacking a little bit of like sharpness and detail. And I think that's something that we're going to try to address. And the original reference photo actually had freckles, and I forgot to add that in. So, you know, sometimes we all make small mistakes like that. We forget to add certain things in, and keeping it on your phone and kind of looking at it when you're not really expecting it kind of reminds you of the things that you might have missed when you were actually in the process of painting it. So we're going to try to address some of those things today and try to fix that up a little bit. And I'll show you guys how I would go about doing this, but it should be a really short process. You're identifying some of the key issues that you think could be improved upon, could be better, but you're not necessarily going back in and repainting over the entire painting. So that's a pretty distinct difference between the kind of editing method that I do versus like going back in for like a second painting session. First thing that I want to address a little bit is what I found to be like a lack of sharpness. There seems to be a lack of detail, or like the illusion of detail. We're missing that a little bit. So I'm going to add in some textures and some unique brush strokes to kind of hopefully bring that out. turn the new layer on and off, you can see that there seems to be a lot more of like an illusion of detail, even though we didn't actually add any more details. I've just made the composition and the character a little bit more visually interesting to look at because of these really sharp and confident lines. And stuff like this, sometimes you don't notice in the moment of painting because you're looking at it on the same screen for a long period of time. And then when you all of a sudden shrink it down, put it onto your phone, and you look at it when you're least expecting it, you're like, oh yeah, there seems to be like a lack of this over here and a lack of that over there, and you kind of start to develop a sense of what you could do better with the painting. So the next thing that I think I'm going to do is I'm going to brighten up the composition a little bit because I found it to be just a tiny bit dark on my phone. And what we're going to do is just use simple adjustments in Photoshop with brightness and contrast and see if we can get something that we like with that. And something else that I noticed was that I got the perspective in the background a little bit off, so that was something else that I wanted to fix, especially this circular shape in the back for the light. That was really throwing me off when I was looking at it on the small screen. Okay, I think that is better. So something else that was jumping out at me was actually the forehead where the skin meets the hair. It looks a little bit jarring because I didn't really add any like ambient occlusion to the area where the hair is going to be covering parts of the skin. So I'm going to try to soften that up a little bit and see if it actually helps. And I think that actually makes it look a lot better and a lot more natural. So a very small change, just a couple of brush strokes, but makes a huge difference. So I'm just adding in some small sharp details because I felt like the painting was lacking a little bit in that area when I was looking at it throughout the day. And that's actually one of the things that we're going to focus on most for this specific revision. I think the lack of like sharp, confident textures was really making the painting a little bit boring to look at. We cannot have a boring painting, no sir. And when you're doing this, really don't be afraid to add crazy brush strokes on top because you're doing it on a new layer, and if you don't like it, you could always take it off. It's not going to destroy the original. I actually forgot to add the highlight on the nose as well. So that was about 15 minutes of editing. The sun has set, but it actually wasn't that long, I promise you guys. But yeah, a really quick process, like really fast and really targeted. I had some things in mind that I knew I wanted to tackle and I wanted to address before this goes onto Instagram. And I think we did a pretty good job with this edit. This was pretty successful. I mean, if I turn it on and off for you guys to take a look, you can see the ambient occlusion is looking a lot more believable in the second version versus the first one, where some of the areas like the forehead as well as the chin, it's looking a little bit jarring. There's no soft shadows that would occur naturally, and with the second pass on the rendering, we kind of applied that, as well as we got in some of the freckles that I forgot about in the first pass, as well as the highlights on the skin and on the nose ridge. So those are pretty important things, and I think overall it just looks a lot sharper. It's not a whole lot of work, but it made a pretty big difference because we were kind of just looking at this painting on and off for the past little while, and finding the things that kind of bug us, and then figuring out, okay, how are we going to address that, and then finally jumping back in with all of the things that we've gathered, and kind of just doing one final pass before this painting becomes its final version. But yeah, one thing to keep in mind is this process is good if the original painting is something that you like, but you've identified certain things that you think could be even better. If you absolutely just hate the original painting, it's probably time to move on to the next one. But usually when I do this process, it's for paintings that are good, that I think have the potential to be great. Anyways, that was a quick demonstration of the process that I go through before I upload my paintings onto Instagram. But yeah, hopefully you guys learned something new from this video. Hopefully this was able to help you guys. It's super simple to implement this into part of your workflow. Let me know if it works for you guys. Let me know if you guys already do something really similar to this in your own workflow. But that's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to give you guys a tip on something that I always do before I publish my work on social media so that I don't regret my decision to actually post something, and every single piece that I put up is something that I can actually say that I'm pretty proud of and that I'm really happy with. But that's pretty much it for our video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you want to see more digital art content like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel. But other than that, I'll see you guys on the next video. Good stuff, guys. When you look at the same painting for a long time, your brain goes numb. It's like when you look at yourself in the mirror for a long time and then somebody takes a picture of you and you're like, oh my God, I'm hideous. But that's because that mirror image is flipped and you're seeing something different for the first time. And your brain is able to spot all the tiny little asymmetries and the imperfections in your face, and you're just like, oh my goodness. But it is what it is. Hey, remember guys, you can repeat this process if you need. If you see something off after the second pass, feel free to go in for a third pass, you know? Just make sure that it's not like a never-ending loop of edits and you just get trapped and you just keep going back, you know, that's not healthy. We don't want to do that. At a certain point, you gotta move on. Subscribe. Cool.